Romania was never a unified entity. By the 16th century, all ethnic Romanian entities were conquered by the Ottoman Empire. Ethnic Romanian lands unified in 1859, while still under Ottoman vassalage. In 1881, it crowned a German prince as King Carol I. In 1878, a Russo-Turkish war broke out, during which Romania revolted and sided with the Russians. After the war, Romania, along with Serbia, Bulgaria, and Montenegro, gained their independence from the Ottoman Empire. However, the Russians seized ethnically Romanian territory of Bujak, adding it to another ethnically Romanian territory already under their control, Southern Bessarabia. By 1907, most peasants, who made up 80% of the country's population, still couldn't vote, while half of the country's arable land was owned by large landowners, the largest one being the king. All attempts to remedy the situation by the Liberal Party were sabotaged by the Conservative Party. This eventually led to a revolt. The government, controlled by the Liberal Party, put it down by brutal force, costing thousands of lives. Official death toll was underreported, and all other information on the revolt was suppressed. 2 years later, secret police force was established to prevent future revolts. No reforms were implemented. In 1911, a war broke out between Balkan League against the Ottoman Empire. The war lasted a year and concluded with Balkan League's victory. Shortly after the Balkan War, a crisis started brewing in Romania, where a land reform bill was narrowly defeated despite overwhelming popular support. Bill's defeat caused a collapse of country's government controlled by the Liberal Party. It was replaced by the Conservative Party government that later confirmed its rule in 1911's election. Its most reactionary faction's leader, Peter Karp, was appointed prime minister. However, Conservative Party's results were achieved under a census suffrage system, and with the help of voter intimidation, fraud, and politically motivated excommunications. Post-election, opposition parties boycotted Bucharest council elections, leading to the race between Karp's and the moderate conservatives, which Karp's faction won. The most contentious issue was still the land reform, and it still saw overwhelming support from the populace. The king started putting increasing amounts of pressure on Karp's government to go against its party's program and implement at least a downscaled version of the land reform bill. But Karp, despite growing calls for the land reform even in his home party, refused. On December 6th, Karp tried to shut down Tramakar Society, based on rumors of it being used to launder funds for the Liberal Party. The Romanian High Court found no wrongdoing. In reaction, Karp accused the High Courts of accepting Liberal Party's bribes. Fearing dismissal of his government by the king, Karp had a military unit loyal to him isolate the king in his palace. He then convinced the king to cooperate and keep the facade of normalcy. By blackmailing him with his involvement in the suppression of 1907's peasants' revolt. Karp's position seemed secure, but then the Russian Tsar dismantled his country's parliament, turning Russia back into an absolute monarchy. This caused a mass exodus of Russian liberals and socialists who, seeing similar events in Romania, warned their local brethren of similar happening in Romania. Karp combated civil unrest by introducing the press censorship and forcibly breaking up peaceful demonstrations. However, this only made the situation worse. On March 15, Karp declared a state of emergency and 2 days later officially banned the Liberal Party. In order to reduce civil resistance, state-controlled press published Liberal Party's role in suppression of 1907's peasants' uprising and its brutality. The ruse and general suppression worked. The Liberal Party supporters were unable to organize effective protests. However, it also had an unintended side effect of causing previously unknown local socialist party called PSD to skyrocket in popularity, turning it into the main opposition party. Karp realized this on November 24th. He had PSD banned, and ordered its members arrested, but catching wind of this, PSD launched a rebellion. PSD secured the country's north, as well as many military units who defected en masse, thus beginning the Romanian Civil War. The rebels planned an offensive south with the aim of splitting Corps forces in two, and then crushing them separately. On June 25th, the civil war ended. The new republic immediately embarked on extensive social reforms, starting with a massive land reform and a gradual economic nationalization. The new government was diplomatically isolated due to its unique governing ideology of Marxism. All of its neighbors collectively embargoed Romania in an attempt to cause its fall. But Romania persevered. Its people were only emboldened by foreign attempts to crush the republic. Its government, however, became paranoid with internal sabotage and became increasingly authoritarian. But while Romania slept in peace, the world burned, as following Austro-Hungarian heir to the throne's assassination by a Serb, the Austro-Hungarian German empires declared war against Serbia and its allies, Russia, Greece, and Bulgaria. Between November and April, three new nations joined the war: France and UK in support of Russia, and Ottomans in support of Germany. In 1916, only a month apart, two nations got knocked out of the war. First, the Ottomans, on April 5th. And Russia lost many of its western lands that were fractured into 7 new nations who became Germany's puppet. On June 11, 1917, Romania entered the war, and well, this video ain't open, but you are not getting any more sped up HOI4 combat, as in pausing all but one of my saves crashes the game. I could not find the reason for these crashes, but it doesn't really matter. Combat for the rest of the video will be done with the help of random number generator, with number rolled, determining the success of that action, the higher being the better. However, I did take logic into account, such as requiring lower or higher number rolled to achieve success. This mostly favored Entente, since they were not starving and had more troops. For the rest of the video, before each roll, text will pop up at the bottom saying if I applied any modifiers to the roll and my reasoning for them. As Romania entered the war, it saw no cooperation with its Entente co-belligerents, as they were still distrustful of Romania's Marxist government. Romania's first military action was a mad dash to capture as much of Austro-Hungarian territory as possible. It was quickly countered, and Romania failed to capture most of their goals. But the local Central Power counterattack failed even harder and led to a renewed Romanian offensive. Central Powers did, however, capture northern Moldova, as it was abandoned by Romanians to shorten their front line. Then Entente launched an offensive at its Balkan front line. It was surprisingly effective, taking most of Bosnia and Dalmatia, and even achieving an encirclement. Seeing a string of Central Powers' losses, Russia decided to rejoin the war. Its offensive was a resounding success. Local armies either defected or were destroyed. Multiple areas seen pro-Russian uprisings. During all this time, it was quiet on the Western Front. Back in the Balkan front, a race started between Romanian and Serbian armies, as both nations distrusted of each other's plans for territorial expansion. Meanwhile, the Russian advance continued. German puppet governments of Poland, Lithuania, and Georgia were overrun by local nationalists, who, in order to gain favor with Entente, delayed Central Powers' reinforcements.